We'll just give it a few moments for other people to join, and then we'll get started.
Sounds great. Thanks.
Hi, everyone. Can you see and hear me all right?
I see you, Liam.
Yep, we got you.
Awesome. All right, we'll start this off. So welcome and thanks for joining us for our Cisco webinar, Start the New Year Secure. My name is Liam Hanvey, and I'll be your host. I'm the marketing coordinator at Compulink Technologies, and I've been working in the IT industry for over 5 years, and I joined the Compulink team back in November. So Compulink Technologies, Inc. is an IT solution provider and specializes in providing IT services, software, and hardware for over 30 years. Today, I'm excited to share how Cisco Umbrella can protect organizations from cyber attacks alongside our two Cisco specialists, Kevin Switzer and Tom Mann. Today, we will be covering Cisco Umbrella and Duo, which are two best-in-class cybersecurity solutions. We'll also cover a little on Cisco Cloud Mailbox Defense, which can be bundled together alongside these solutions for a full comprehensive security package. Duo and Umbrella have been proven to reduce malware by 75%, reduce remediation time by over 50%, and protect on and off network. As remote workers continue to work virtually due to the COVID-19 pandemic, it's vital for IT teams to have a reliable cybersecurity tool at their disposal. Studies have shown that working from home can lead to an increase in distractions caused during a normal workday. These mental slip-ups can ultimately lead to a security breach, putting an organization's network infrastructure at risk for a devastating cyber attack. So Cisco Umbrella and Duo eliminate this distraction factor and help IT teams focus their efforts on other organizational needs. Thanks again for joining, and I'm going to pass the ball to Kevin and Tom and let them have the floor and talk a little bit more about these tools.
All right, thank you very much, Liam. And just want to make sure everybody can hear me and you are seeing my screen as well.
Yep, your screen's up.
All right, great. So my name is Kevin Switzer. I'm a technology consultant with Cisco Systems and been focused on Cisco security for about 7 to 8 years. Prior to that, I was actually focused on data center with Cisco UCS systems. But when Cisco decided they were really going to go after the security market and break it into its own separate architecture and add a bunch of products and acquisitions. I jumped on the opportunity to get into this realm. And I'll be taking you through about the first half of today's session, and I'll let my counterpart, Mr. Tom Mann, introduce himself.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Kevin. As you can see there on the slide, I'm basically a systems engineer. I work out of our Business Transformation Center, which is a demonstration facility where I get to test and demonstrate different solutions. I've actually got a long experience in the IT world. I've been in the IT industry since the late 80s. A long time with Microsoft and Cisco, and been focused pretty heavily on Cisco security for a few years at least. And looking forward to present for you today. I think Kevin and I will be able to get you a lot of great information. Thanks. Take it away, Kevin.
All righty. So I would say close to half of my time is actually spent tracking cybersecurity trends in a general context, and it's very important so that we know what's going on out there in the attacker world, so we know exactly how to be the most strategic with our solutions. So I'm going to start out that for our agenda today, and also touch on Cisco Talus, which is the back-end threat research team at Cisco. And then we'll look into some of the Cisco security solutions. Want to make sure you're aware of some bundles that are being offered currently specific for securing remote workers. We'll take a dive into Umbrella. We consider to be the first defense for the internet DNS security. A touch on cloud mailbox defense, since it's going to be so relevant as we'll talk about in the cybersecurity trends. Give you a look at Cisco Duo, which is we consider zero trust for the workplace. We'll also provide demonstrations on Umbrella and Cisco Duo. So to get started, in general, I really wanted to focus this entirely on 2020 because there was such a major shift in what we have seen as far as focuses for hackers and attackers. And since the pandemic actually began, the FBI is actually reporting a 300% increase in reported cyber crimes. Now, we typically do expect some type of an increase each year. It's just the evolution of the internet and crime, but a 300%, I don't think anyone expected that high level of an increase. And originally in the start of the pandemic, we were actually tracking what the hackers are doing, and some major security companies actually reached out and said, are you going to lay off the medical industry since they're so overwhelmed? At first, they said, yes, we will stop our ransomware attacks against healthcare providers. And they certainly did not say, well, we're going to stop. They're still looking for a way to hack, make money, et cetera. So we saw a major shift towards remote workers. A lot of the attackers actually have gone back to attacking healthcare workers, but for the most part, we're seeing the highest concentration still is against remote workers. And we've seen in 2020 across several surveys, anywhere from 92 to 95% of successful cybersecurity breaches are caused by human error. So either someone did something they were not supposed to do, which is going to be the majority, clicking on an email or whatever. And not too far behind that is somebody did not do something that they were supposed to do. In 2021, in 2020, that should say 2020, 94% of malware was delivered by email. A couple of years ago, it was anywhere between 80 and 85%. So we have seen a pretty sharp increase in that. And the reason being because so many people have shifted to remote workers, a lot of companies have not been entirely focused on security. Obviously, it was a big rush. Hey, everyone's got to shift to work from home. I need to get them connected. That is priority number one. And then kind of security was a later thought if they've gotten around to it or not. So these attackers are seeing that it's much easier for them to go after these remote workers versus trying to put together some elaborate scheme to actually penetrate directly through a company's firewall. So they're finding that email is a very successful means for them. 47% of employees cited distraction as the reason for falling for a phishing scam while working from home. And we are referring to this as the distraction factor. And what we mean by this is that there is certainly a certain level of expectation that's reasonable when a person is in the office at their desk, at their workstation, and focused in, probably have two good size screens connected to their PC, and they've probably been through some sort of at least short training of, hey, here's what a malicious email looks like, don't click on it, and typically send this over to the security department to check into it. Now that we've been shifted to the working from home in many cases, there's a lot of different types of distractions when working from home. Don't have to even get into all that. I think everybody understands you're working from home. There's a lot of different ways you can become distracted. You're not as dialed in. Also, a lot of people who are not used to having certain types of devices connected to their work email and their work systems, their phone, their tablet, whatever it may be. And also they could be, working up that device, or, taking their daily break, a walk around the park, or whatever it may be. And they're not as focused as they would be if they were sitting at their desk in the office and clicking on something that they normally would not have if they were a bit more focused on their work. Business email compromise, it's the second top method of phishing emails. And let me back up one step. The top method associated with the distraction factor is some sort of news. There's been so many things in the news between the social issues going on, the pandemic. It's very easy for these attackers to write or create an email that is just, irresistible to click on with some major update of some type of news. The second one being business email compromise. And what this is, an attacker who really specializes in different types of phishing emails, they're going to usually go onto LinkedIn or whatever. They're going to check out, a vice president or a C-level person for a particular company, and very often their email address is actually posted on their profile. So they're going to send them an email, and even if they don't get a response, they'll probably get a bounce back with the signature. So they at least have a format of how that person's email looks. So then what they will do is generate an email look like, and even register a domain with one small character difference. So it's very difficult to actually tell the difference. They will continue to go through LinkedIn, find associates that may work under that person, send them an email from the domain that looks very similar with their boss's format, and say, hey, please send me payment for X or whatever it may be. And just to give an example, John.Kelly versus John.Kelly, spelled K-E-L-L-Y versus K-E-L-L-E-Y would be the simple difference here. Now, the main thing that these attackers are typically after is going to be your login credentials, and 80% of hacking related breaches leverage compromised usernames and passwords. And typically what they're looking to do, get these credentials and sell them on the dark web to someone who actually specializes in malware, so that once they are able to access your system, they're actually able to load the malware on there and do what they want to do. And just an interesting stat, 86% of breaches were financially motivated, and about 10% were motivated by actual espionage. And the average ransomware payment rose about 33% in 2020 to $111,000. So very costly to a company to pay the ransom or not pay the ransom in many cases. And they're actually starting to do what we call double espionage. So even if you do make those payments, they're actually still taking your data and selling it off to third-party companies. So very risky, and they're getting smarter and better at it, just getting paid and also doing damage to the company. Now, since this was recently such a big thing in the news, just wanted to touch on this, the SolarWinds breach. So the earliest recorded domain registration in this breach was actually August 6th in 2019. And we're saying that the earliest identified modification of SolarWinds code was not till October. First domain registered December 6th, and first SSL certificate acquired in February of 2020. Between March and June of 2020 is when these attackers actually weaponized the SolarWinds software update releases. Now, keep in mind, this is a major company also with a very heavy security focus. And it wasn't until December 8th that the FireEye Red Team Tools was reported, and SolarWinds finally started to report this breach. SolarWinds Security Advisory released December 14th, and Microsoft actually seized the domain on December 15th. So we go from August to December 15th. That is a tremendous timeline for a company that is so security focused. So keep that in mind, that if they can breach this company for this long, imagine a company that doesn't have such a good security focus. Are there any questions so far? I will take that as a no and continue on. So starting to talk about Cisco, I wanted to first mention Cisco Talos. And when we asked the question, you know, why is Cisco such a great security company? This is a major piece to that. Talos is the back-end research team. And for once in our world, we actually do not have an acronym here. Talos was the Greek god for defense and protection. So Cisco decided to name their research team after that. I just want a basic idea of how this team breaks up. It starts with threat intelligence and interdiction, and this part of the team is focused on getting in the way of an active threat by surveilling active threat campaigns for intelligence and working with incident response groups. The next is detection research, and this part of the team focuses on constantly improving the methods for identifying new threat detection methods. And engineering and development is about creating more powerful tools that find their way back to Cisco Security Solutions in the open source community. Vulnerability and research and discovery is on the lookout for weaknesses in different types of software, hardware, and systems that drive everything. And the best security research is not done in a vacuum. The whole community effort is built upon partnerships with other threat researchers and customers and security organizations that are working together to protect everyone. And I asked the question a while back at a Cisco event, you know, how much information do you actually share? And all they would tell me is that more than you think. So it is actually good in my eyes to hear that these back-end research teams for different vendors are actually working together. And it's not so much that they're sharing the information that makes it interesting, but or makes them effective. It's once they have that information, how they actually respond to it and put those protections in place. And the newest addition to the Talos team is incident response. Talos incident response can actually be sent out if there is a major attack successfully on a company. They can actually go in there and provide remediation, of course, for a contract cost. And the way this whole system works with Talos is that it's basically a giant network as a sensor. So for every Cisco security product out there, whenever it receives some type of threat and it blocks it, it is simply pushing that information back to this Talos team. So they are at least aware every time something malicious comes in and it is blocked, and that's in the case where it is a known threat. And then also, let's say there is some type of new threat. There is, say, some type of new malware file, and it actually was not caught in the digital fingerprint check process, and then it started to act maliciously. In that case, it would be contained by one of the Cisco security endpoints, and it would send every piece of information it knows about that piece of malware back to Cisco Talos. That's where the mediation team will kind of jump into action and pick it apart, decide or figure out what it's actually doing, where it comes from, what server it's trying to talk to, etc. And then it's going to push the fixes and blocks down to all the other Cisco security solutions. So now everyone is automatically protected. And the size of them, they're a little bit over 250 full-time threat researchers, and they are across the globe, strategically located in 5 offices around the world, so that 24/7, 365, there is people working on that. And what they say is their plan or their goal is to block at least 99% of the threats, which leaves the actual users the time to focus on just the 1% that may get through. And Tom, I will let you cover this bundle piece.
Yeah, not a problem, Kevin. So, we're talking about several products. So far, we didn't even get to the products yet. There's Umbrella and Duo are the main focuses. But Cisco did put together what they call a bundle, which is actually a discounted price on these products. So they thought about what remote work would mean. And the bundle actually is if you get Cisco WebEx and at least one of the security products that are listed to the right, and actually, you get a discount on all the products then. You could buy as many as you want, but you need at least WebEx and one security product. The discounted solution goes up to 250 users. On the bottom, you could see AnyConnect and their secure endpoint product also could qualify for the bundled price. It's interesting for remote work. We're going to focus mostly on Duo and Umbrella, but also we decided to spend a few minutes on cloud mailbox defense. All three of these really being very useful for the security of remote workers. And we'll cover more of those as we go. Note a couple of the products do need to have a minimum of 25 users. One thing to note there. All right, go ahead, move forward, Kevin.
Alrighty, so at this point, we want to give you an overview of what Cisco Umbrella does for users in a DNS security realm. And wanted to start with Cisco Umbrella Evolution. It was actually a company called OpenDNS. And at first, this was simply a DNS resolution solution. Instead of using service providers, it was considered to be faster, more accurate, things like that. And then in 2012, they started to introduce some basic security features. In 2015, Cisco decided to acquire OpenDNS because they did not have a DNS security solution, and it seemed better to purchase the top company in this area instead of develop their own. So then Cisco started to add their own layers of security functionality about 2017. And in 2019, they actually came out with quite a few more features: secure web gateway, firewall as a service, cloud access security broker features, SD-WAN integration, et cetera. And they continue to invest in research and development and features in the Cisco Umbrella solution. So this is something that's going to stick around for quite some time. And historic traffic flows, I would say this has to go back at least 5 years, where we would typically see, all of our applications are in our data centers in-house, and internal traffic is roughly 80%, and we're only using about 20% internet traffic. And this slowly evolved over about 5 years to where we saw a complete flip, where we saw internal traffic drop to about 20% and internet traffic increased to about 80%. So a lot of this is due to basic browsing, different types of software as a service and cloud, public and private cloud types of solutions that the whole industry was kind of shifting towards. And now I would say this would probably be closer to even 90% of external traffic with so many work from home users. And just to give you an idea of the scope of Umbrella, they are located, their DNS servers are located in 31 worldwide data centers in the primary IXPs all over the globe, so that no matter where the user is, they're not going to experience latency with their DNS resolutions. And to give you an idea of where we believe Umbrella fits or where it should fit, let's just start out talking about the headquarters. So you would simply redirect your DNS queries from wherever it was over to two specific URLs for DNS resolution, one as a primary and one as a backup, and Umbrella figures out the rest. So from the headquarters, everyone's going through this and gets that additional layer of defense. Same thing with branch routers. We can do the same thing there. And of course, now that we have so many work from home users, and we'll talk about VPN a bit more in a bit, but we all know that Users from home don't always activate their VPN, whether they just skip that step or if it actually slows their internet connection down. Many users just don't utilize the VPN. So they are missing out on all of those firewall features they would normally have when utilizing a VPN. But with this step, Umbrella is still going to give them at least that basic layer of security, of secure DNS. And what that's going to give you as a benefit, it's typically going to block mail before it hits the enterprise, or if it's already on the machine, it's going to notice that it's trying to talk to some type of malicious command and control server and block that. And a few additional features, and this is kind of a 3 different licensed model, and sure that we would take an entire conversation just to go over, your specific needs and the different licensing models, which we'd be happy to do anytime going forward. But we're going to start out getting the very basic DNS layer of security, and we also can introduce Cloud Access Security Broker capabilities, or CASB. Also, in the Cisco acquisition some time back was a company called Cisco CloudLock. And they primarily did that to get the technology for how they were actually performing CASB functionality. And they have been introducing these layers of features into Cisco Umbrella. So this is going to give you the application specific layer of security. And I have to take a look at the list. It's well over 100 different applications, might even be up to 200 now. And you can specifically name them and either block them or limit them. So, for example, we could do something like Facebook, or social media, we could not allow, or we could allow just Facebook, or limit even the functionality within that. We actually have the abilities to do things like secure web gateway, and this is going to give you the full web proxy layer of security. So for all URLs, you are able to provide specific policies on. And the top layer is going to be an actual SIG, or Secure Internet Gateway Cloud Delivered Firewall. So if you actually had the need for remote workers or for branch offices and didn't have the ability or the need to put a firewall there, we can actually do this through a VPN. We route all traffic to the Umbrella Cloud Delivered Firewall and filter things that way. And also provide interactive threat intel. So this is going to not only tell you that, hey, there was an attempt to connect to a malicious site by a piece of malware on a machine, but also it's going to provide all of the threat intelligence that Cisco Talos knows about that particular site or the particular threat. Also give you access to Investigate Console, which is a very deep dive tool when picking apart different types of threats. A couple other things worth noting is that this actually uses Anycast routing. So a particular user is not tied to a specific data center. So if once we do get back to travel across the country and globally, their particular device, their account is not tied to a specific one of the data centers. It's going to reach out to whichever one happens to be closest and fastest. Also, excuse me, we have the ability to do specific roaming features. If you happen to be using Cisco's AnyConnect VPN, that can actually directly tie to the in-house Umbrella account and configure very specific policies and the deep level policies. If they are not happening to use AnyConnect, there actually is a lightweight client, Umbrella connector client, that can actually live on the device itself and also provide that deeper layer of policy functionality. Any questions on Umbrella thus far before we turn it over to Tom to perform a demo on this? All right, with that, see Tom's getting his screen up.
All right, do you see my screen, Kevin?
I do see your screen, all good.
Terrific. All right, so we're going to do a short demonstration of Umbrella. So This is the Umbrella dashboard. One of the things you get with it when you buy Umbrella is a full dashboard, which gives us a ton of visibility, both on URLs and where the users are going, plus what applications they're using. And then there's different policies you could set for different types of users. So the solution could integrate into Active Directory if you want. The secure web gateway could actually integrate with Microsoft Azure. So there are different levels of product, as Kevin mentioned. For example, if I expand policies here, DNS policies are going to be all about that. When you get the first 2 tiers of Umbrella, it's DNS layer security. And that's where a lot of customers are currently buying Umbrella. But now there are firewall and web policies if you get the secure internet, the SIG Essentials product, as they call it. So let's take a quick look through here. Right now, I'm just on the overview screen here. And if I come down, you can see there's different announcements. They actually have a threat lens built into Umbrella that's relatively new to see active threats, a little separate than a lot of the other data. And they even have one specifically built to show if you have any connections that are compromised by the SolarWinds breach. I could click that, and then it will go out and show that I don't have any, luckily. This is actually my network I'm managing back at my demonstration facility that I mentioned I have. So this is showing this year. I could expand it, maybe say do the last 30 days. And I don't have any SolarWinds breach, which is nice. I could back up one, and now it's looking at any backdoor attacks to see if any compromised machines are making outbound connections. And again, luckily, I do not have any of that. If I go back to overview and set it for, say, 30 days, there are some things happening. Now, I don't have a lot of users in the office, and that because it's a demonstration facility, not all the computers are being managed by me. But even with a small amount of computers and just other network equipment, in 30 days, there's still over 7.6 million DNS requests with hardly anyone in the office are using this. It's any piece of equipment can be protected in the office, and any roaming device can be protected. And that's huge because they're all chatting about all kinds of little things. Every little service on your Windows machine likes to go out on the internet and check things. And you want to make sure that they can't go to bad sites. That's the primary thing here. So you could do bad sites based on the fact that they're malicious, plus based on the fact that you want to block things by policy also. So right here, there's over 1,000 blocks. 61 of them were malicious blocks, actually. So a lot of the people browsing are going to places that actually are just violating policy, actually, not necessarily malicious. So this I actually clicked, and now I can see different destinations, URLs, that are malicious. So these were all blocked. That's the internal IP address right here. You could integrate into Umbrella into Meraki or into your DNS. I'm doing both, of course. So this shows me the different ways the data was collected, which is good for me understanding my own network. If I scroll over, you could see some of these are actual malware, these URLs, and they are blocked. Right now, we're just looking at blocked. I could take that off, and put in allowed. Now, that's actually now going to show all URL traffic. So I could see where everyone's going, and I can, click on any of these. Like here's someone going to Google, perhaps, things like that. Now, if I go back to the first overview screen and scroll down a little more, you're going to see something called application discovery. This was added by that CloudLock acquisition Kevin talked about. It's showing in the last 90 days, this one works 90 days, over 1,500 cloud applications were in use, again, in my demonstration facility. Most people don't realize it until they get a product like this, just how many applications are in use on their network, many of them going out. These are web applications, many of them. So I click that, and now it's showing me at the top here, very high risk, then high risk. And some of these are completely legitimate and nothing wrong with them, but they can still be risky if the wrong person's using them. Like Rhombus here or Dolby conferencing. There's nothing wrong with those. Some of these might have problems. I'm not sure what this ex.co is. I'm going to click that, and then it goes in, and basically I have the option right here to say I want to block it. I could set block on different policies and say that it's not approved, and then save that. And then that will block anyone to going to it in the future if it wasn't already blocked. But this could come in and show me the reputation of the product and if it has any business relevance and if there's any vendor compliance. So some of these will have compliance ratings. This one does not have any, but it goes in depth on every application that's listed here, and it's actually quite vast. Now I just went back to the kind of the main application screens, and you see it's breaking down some of the most risky at top. Anonymizers are a way for end users to try to bypass your security. And this is showing some anonymizers that are trying to be in use. Here's a fun one, Genius Monkey. I believe I'm blocking that also. So there's all kinds of policies you could set and categories, both for applications and for URLs for content. So for example, I just went to content categories, and I'm going to go into one of them here. And these are the typical content categories you would configure to do web content filtering. So I'm blocking an assortment. You could do the same thing for applications and then block ones you don't want. I just mentioned anonymizers. Here's a whole bunch of them. They're always adding more too. So every month I notice more get added. Some of them are legitimate. I'm probably not going to block Aruba and AnyConnect, but I might block some of these others, for example. And the list is vast. This is just anonymizers. Notice how many are in here. I'm doing my work. I don't want to have to come back and do this. I figured I'd do this right now and hit save. There we go. And I just saved that actually. So Umbrella also is very easy to administer and manage and easy to deploy. So that's the quick demonstration on Umbrella. That's something that, if someone wants more time, you could ask, and we'd be happy to help out on a longer Umbrella demonstration. But it's excellent at helping remote users not going to bad sites. And think of other things too, like phishing. If you click a link and it's a phishing link, Umbrella will help block you from going to that phishing link so you don't get compromised. With that, I'm going to bring up the PowerPoint unless there's any questions on Umbrella. And let me find the right spot here and I'll start that.
There's no questions listed in the chat so far, Tom.
Okay, actually, I went a little too far. Sorry about that. I wanted to quickly cover then Cloud Mailbox Defense, since it was another good product for remote workers and also part of that discounted bundle. This is a pretty new product. It came out in mid-2020, around May or June is when they first released it. It's basically trying to provide security for your email, but specifically cloud email. Basically, not have much overhead to use, be able to stop attacks in email better than what you might already have. And it works at an API level, basically. And I'll get more into that in just a moment. But it has all these major features. It can stop email based on reputation and analysis of the email, of also the sender, the host that it's coming from, the URL that it might be in the email, the content, excellent spam protection, all rolled into a cloud-based solution. Notice on the bottom, I'm able to block malware, phishing, business email compromise, internal threats, and account takeover. These are all common problems, and this tries to address all these. The big thing is this is basically an Office 365 solution, or also called Microsoft 365, depending on the plan you buy. It only today works with Office 365, basically. So it's an augment solution to add on top of Microsoft's basic protection. Microsoft has Exchange Online protection as kind of their standard protection, which gives you some basic capabilities, but a lot of the things on the previous slide I talked about, it's not really that great. That's why Microsoft also came out with their own add-on called ATP. This product really competes with ATP. So instead of getting ATP backed by Microsoft, you could get Cloud Mailbox Defense backed by Cisco and Cisco Talos and all of Cisco security knowledge, which is vast, to provide additional mailbox security. What's great is how quickly you could set this up. Less than 10 minutes to get this going once it's provisioned by Cisco. And it doesn't change mail flow. Everything still exists in Office 365. A copy of the mail goes to Cloud Mailbox Defense to be analyzed. And then if it thinks it's bad, it will make an API call back and delete the message in Office 365. So it's not like sending all the mail somewhere else first, which many traditional solutions do. It also allows for internal mail in Office 365 to be scanned, and that's another big deal too. Many gateway-based solutions don't do that. All right, that's my quick spiel on the Cloud Mailbox Defense. It's also a very affordable solution to add to your existing Office 365. All right, let's move forward now to Cisco Duo. Some people are familiar with it, not everyone is. Cisco Duo really tries to help deliver zero trust for your workforce. It's also called their access solution now. So it's Cisco Remote Access by Duo is another way they're calling it. The idea is to try to secure your authentication and login to all your business applications. So when someone logs in, they are a user. The user is logging in, and we trust that they're a user traditionally with username and password. The problem is a lot of times they use lousy passwords. They're either guessed or phished is a big problem. And the hackers get the username and password. And once they have that, they can get into everything. So for instance, I'll use Office 365 as the example. If they hacked my Office 365 account, they can get into all my Office 365 data and accounts. That would be bad. So the idea is to do multi-factor authentication, and that's where Duo comes in, to help trust your users. But the users are logging in from their own device, especially when you work from home. Even if it's company managed or not, you want to make sure that device isn't already compromised or has vulnerabilities on it. So Duo can help identify if there's vulnerabilities on the device. And most multi-factor authentication solutions don't have that capability. Duo is kind of special in that way. It does a lot more than just multi-factor authentication. Now, one of the things when users are logging in, they might be logging into VPN, or they might be logging into a network, or applications, say Salesforce or Buy.com, or not Buy.com, Box.com, or Office 365, as I was just talking about. There's many, many, many applications they could be logging into, and any of those could have their password stolen. So we want to be able to protect all the applications and then get visibility across the solution so we can see what users logging in from what device. Is the device compromised or is it good? And then what applications are they getting into? And we can then set policies for that. So that in a nutshell, I guess in the one slide, is what Duo does. Let's go into it a little bit farther. I'll be fairly quick on some of these slides since I just summed up a lot of it there. So some of the keynotes is to help protect users. You see at the top it says user trust. Is the ability to work with all the applications, get users into this quickly. They could even self-enroll themselves. And then when it's working, you authenticate them. The main way would be on an app on a phone, like an iPhone or an Android phone. And it's quick and easy to do, and adds a lot of security, that authentication. MFA or multi-factor authentication for business is really becoming a must now because passwords are being broken all over the place. It's a real problem in the industry. We could actually authenticate it with a variety of different methods. You see there's a lot on the screen. Dual push is when you use your phone to hit a button, like a green button, to allow yourself in. And that's going to be the most recommended, most secure way to do it and easy. In some applications, universal two-factor is popular. This more for a desktop, maybe someone in a building where there's no, they're not going to have phone use. You put a USB stick in the computer, you type username and password, then they hit a button on the USB stick to do their secondary authentication. Many of the other methods are for legacy support or a fallback if they can't do any of the first ones. I had someone in a hotel that had maintenance people in the basement, and the only thing they had down there was a phone, but they might need to log into a laptop or an application down there. When I say phone, I meant hard phone, like old-fashioned phone. So that a phone callback worked for them. All right, let's move forward. So I mentioned applications. There's many applications that might be used that people are logging into. They could be doing VPN, and a variety of VPNs are supported to make that a more secure logon, or multiple clouds, or full Microsoft integration to make it a more secure logon. It really is a big list of different things Dual works with and integrates with. And they have great documentation, too, to get all these things working. Let me know if there's any questions. Just interrupt me if you want. I mentioned automatic enrollment a little bit earlier. That's, I found, really nice for schools. So say as a college is starting up, they have 3,000 new students, they could have them automatically enroll. Or actually, that's the self-enrollment. Automatic actually is pulling things in, like a pull from Azure or LDAP or Active Directory, and bringing users in. Both very popular, actually. Or you can even import users through API or even CSV files. There's a variety of methods, actually. The idea is Duo is doing a secondary authentication. So whatever you're doing for primary authentication for the app, you have a matching user then inside Duo to log them in. Duo also supports federal agencies and contractors. So it's FedRAMP is a real big deal, FIPS, DFARS, definitely a fully compliant solution. So that's another big one. Now, I mentioned device trust. This gets deeper then into, if I'm logging in from a machine that's riddled with vulnerabilities, I don't like doing Windows Update, for example, because it takes so long. I might already be hacked on my machine, even though they don't have my password. And if someone owns my machine and I log into my business app, they might be getting to my data. So the idea is for an easy solution to identify if a machine is vulnerable. If it's not patched, has vulnerabilities, has old software, things like that. So Duo gives us great visibility into that. What operating system, how old is it patched? And then a full security posture of the device without having to have a mobile device manager or an enterprise mobility manager. However, the funny part is it also can integrate into those solutions too, many of them, to gather even more information and consider the device a fully trusted device if you are using MDMs and enterprise mobility managers. Another thing is integrating into other security software. They call that continuous inspection. Cisco has an endpoint security product also, and they do support some others too, where they can talk to the Cisco AMP for Endpoints cloud, and if it considers the endpoint already compromised from Cisco AMP for Endpoints, then Duo will block the user from logging in. So a lot of these are very sophisticated, but add a lot of security to your environment. They have protection for the mobile device and for laptops and desktops. But the mobile device also might be your authenticator also, so where you authenticate it from there, but you could be using your apps on the mobile device too. They did last year add a health application, which is optional for Windows, or it can collect additional information. This is an example of posture information that it can collect even without a mobile device manager on there. So we know if someone's misusing, in this case, is their iOS device out of date? You know, do they have screen lock enabled? Is the device jailbroken? Things like that. This just gets a little deeper. On the left is information that the IT people can get from the mobile devices, and then on the right, it can get everything on the bottom just with Duo. And then if you have their little health app on the desktop operating system, it can get additional knowledge. Like, is disk encryption enabled? Is the firewall enabled? Is Windows 10 patched? But notice on the bottom, with nothing extra, it could tell if there's old Flash or old Java plugins, old browsers, old operating systems, things like that. So again, there's a lot of good information. That's that AMP integration I was talking about. Let me move on. Some additional areas would be more into how we can protect those applications. Now, this is just another look, another slide, really, of all different types of applications and operating systems. On the bottom left, you can even see if administrators are SSHing into Linux and Unix and stuff like that, that could be protected too. There's different levels of product required for some things. If you're using a third-party authentication service like OneLogin or Okta, that's supported too. All right, let me know if there's any questions. Now, with this, I mentioned it can do policies. So I can actually set policies of what applications users are allowed to get to based on where they're coming from, what device, and if the devices are compliant. And there's a variety of them that I could set up. These are some examples. I could do country codes just with Duo and say, in this example, just they have to be in the United States, coming from a local IP address. That's geolocation. It's going to block anonymizers and Tors, and I could even specify a specific IP range if I say they only could come from this network, if I even wanted to do that. I've had someone actually want to do that for their IT management people, interestingly. Here's another example of blocking users that might have out-of-date operating systems or tampered devices, or they do or don't have biometrics on, things like that. Old Java, old Flash. So those are a few policy screens. There's a lot of flexibility you could do. You could do, well, before I move on, things like, say, integrating to Active Directory and say maybe just the engineers that are on devices not jailbroken can get into Azure or AWS, something like that. A wide variety of VPN support so that when you're logging into VPN, you get two-factor. And there's more support than that's on this slide, actually. Of course, this is a Cisco presentation, so I do have integration into AnyConnect is listed on both their traditional ASA software and on their threat defense software listed at the bottom. All right, so when you go to get Duo, there are actually 3 levels of Duo if you're interested in the solution. There's a product called Duo MFA. This is the entry-level product, and it's going to do the multi-factor authentication very, very securely from the different devices. The mid-tier product is Dual Access. This actually is now going to support the bring your own devices and allow you to do policies and do the device hygiene. So I can do policies on, is the device jailbroken? Is it out of date? Most of those features I was talking about are in Dual Access, not Dual MFA. So this is really the main recommended level for a lot of clients if they want to do any policies to enforce that the devices are compliant. And then the third tier is Dual Beyond. This actually could integrate into AMP for endpoints and other products, into mobile device managers. And if you do that with this level, then you consider the device a fully trusted device because you're managing any malware and the mobile device manager and Duo protecting the product. Now that's kind of the main ways you could buy Duo. I just kind of want to sum up or review the difference here between Umbrella and Duo. So Umbrella is protecting us as we go to the internet. It's really not providing any local protection on the machine itself. It's stopping you from going to bad sites or your machine going to bad sites if it's been compromised in some way. And you could do that also based on policy, content filtering. You don't want people going to pornography, for example, in your environment. Duo works differently. Duo is protecting users as they log into their applications and networks, and protecting those usernames and passwords with the multi-factor authentication and identifying if we have machines that aren't compliant. The two paired together really add some excellent security. So that's a good idea to talk about these. They're also easy to deploy too, and both cloud managed. So really, they work great for remote workers. So that's my quick summation. And I'll see if there's any questions and turn it back over to the host. Liam, are you there? If you are, you're muted.
Hey everyone. Yes, I'm here. So I think right now we'll just leave the floor open for any questions. If anyone has anything to ask, please feel free to do so now.
And you could unmute yourself and ask verbally too. That's fine. We'll be happy to answer anything. When you get a group, though, there's not always going to be questions.
Or you just presented it perfectly, Tom. Of course, there's that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Liam, what can people do as next steps if they're interested in these solutions? Who should they reach out to?
So please reach out to our sales team. I will provide a link in the chat and I'll follow up to all the attendees. And I will send a recording of the webinar. And if you're interested, please reach out to our Compulink sales team and get in touch. And you can learn more, and we'll help you with whatever your needs are.
All right, that sounds great, Liam. You probably could stop the recording and get that chat out there, and I think we're good to go.
Excellent. Thank you guys for presenting, and thank you to all the attendees that joined today. It means a lot. And like I said, I will follow up with everyone and I'll send out an email with that recording. And please, if you have any questions, reach out. I'll send some information to get in touch with our sales team. And again, I appreciate everyone for joining.
Thank you, everyone.
Take care, everyone.
Have a great afternoon.
Bye.